Among the various fighter jets used by air forces around the world, only two remain on the front lines for close air support: Russia's Su-25 and the US A-10. Russia continues to maintain the Su-25 due to its struggling domestic economy, a shortage of precision-guided weapons, and the Su-25's impressive durability, ease of production, low cost, and outstanding effectiveness relative to its price, making it a point of pride. Meanwhile, the U.S. Air Force has long wanted to retire the A-10, but the U.S. Army has firmly disagreed, insisting on keeping it at all costs. Why does an aircraft belonging to the Air Force garner such strong opinions and significant power from the Army? To understand this, we need to go back to the story of the A-10's creation. If you're a military enthusiast, let's dive into the details. As early as the Vietnam War, the U.S. Army frequently criticized the Air Force for failing to provide timely and effective support in missions requiring high precision. They argued that the Air Force had spent too much of its budget developing advanced fighter jets, while neglecting the need for direct support for the Army's ground forces. In reality, the U.S. Air Force wasn't particularly enthusiastic about frontline support missions for the Army, but the Army's criticism wasn't entirely straightforward. The Army's greatest ambition was to have its own fixed-wing attack aircraft to serve ground support. Of course, the U.S. Air Force never agreed with this idea. Seeing no hope with fixed-wing aircraft, the Army shifted its focus and invested in the development of the AH-64 Apache attack helicopter. At the same time, the Soviet Union was rapidly expanding its armored forces, with the introduction of the T-64, the most advanced tank now in service. This put pressure on the U.S. Air Force, which realized it needed a more effective ground attack aircraft. Otherwise, the Army might not be able to stop the Soviet armored wave, and the Air Force's airfields would become the front line. Conversely, if the Army relied on its attack helicopters to stop the Soviets, it would prove that the Air Force no longer had a role in supporting ground forces, leading to significant cuts in its budget. So, in 1966, the U.S. Air Force launched a plan called the Attack Experimental, abbreviated AX, aimed at developing a frontline support aircraft with strict requirements. The goal of the AX project was to create an aircraft with high speed, excellent maneuverability, a small turn radius, good survivability, the ability to take off and land from short or makeshift airstrips, and at the same time be inexpensive and easy to maintain. Initially, the project's primary weapon was a 20mm 6-barrel Gatling gun. However, in 1967, during the Six-Day War, the Israeli Air Force used a 30mm aircraft cannon on their Mirage III fighters to easily destroy Arab army tanks. This event caused the U.S. Air Force to change its decision, upgrading the cannon to 30mm and demanding a firing rate of 4,000 rounds per minute. By August 1970, 6 major companies, including Cessna, Fairchild, Boeing, Lockheed, General Dynamics, and Northrop, submitted bids for the AX project. Meanwhile, 4 companies, General Electric, Philco Ford, Hughes, and General American Transportation, competed to develop the cannon. By the end of 1970, after a thorough selection process, Northrop and Fairchild were chosen for the final stage of the AX project, while General Electric and Philco Ford were selected to develop the cannon. By May 1972, the prototypes from the 2 companies made their first flights, Northrop's YA-9 and Fairchild's YA-10. At that point, the 30mm cannon project was still incomplete, so both prototypes temporarily used the General Electric M61 Vulcan 20mm cannon as a substitute. The Northrop YA-9 used a traditional design with 2 engines and twin tail fins, providing excellent maneuverability. This layout was later adopted by Russia's Su-25. Meanwhile, the Fairchild YA-10 had a more unusual aerodynamic design, even somewhat strange, but stood out for its ease of maintenance and excellent ability to withstand fire. Ultimately, due to its lower cost and superior survivability, the YA-10 won the competition. On January 18, 1973, the U.S. Air Force announced that Fairchild's YA-10 was the winner, naming the new aircraft the A-10 Thunderbolt II. By June of the same year, General Electric, as expected, won the contract to develop the 30mm 7-barrel cannon, designated the GAU-8. The A-10 has a fuselage length of 16.26 meters, a wingspan of 17.53 meters, a height of 4.47 meters, an empty weight of 11.3 tons, and a maximum takeoff weight of 23 tons. In terms of appearance, the A-10 does not have the typical sleek look. It even appears quite odd, but every design detail serves to optimize survivability in combat. The wings use a straight design without any rearward angle, with a surface area of 47 square meters, coupled with a large horizontal tail and twin vertical tails. This aerodynamic design is not suited for high-speed flight, making the A-10 a typical subsonic aircraft, with a maximum speed of only 706 kilometers per hour and a cruise speed of 560 kilometers per hour. However, this is extremely beneficial for low-altitude operations, with excellent turn capabilities and agility, and a minimum speed that can drop below 240 kilometers per hour, crucial for an aircraft specifically designed for low-level attacks like the A-10. In an era where people are pursuing quality and a comfortable free lifestyle, I'd like to introduce a military-style product, a nylon belt for young people. This is a product I've used for over 10 years, and I've been very satisfied with it. Recently, I thought it was worth promoting, so I reached out to the previous owner for a collaboration. The quality of this belt is truly outstanding, even in a market flooded with cheap products. I've always believed that quality is key. This belt is thick, made from high-density nylon, with carefully crafted, tightly sealed edges, completely eliminating any fraying or looseness. It's not too stiff, providing a light and comfortable feel when worn. The buckle is made with YKK components, a critical factor that ensures its durability for over 10 years without issues. The product is metal-free, avoiding allergies, and pairs perfectly with jeans or athletic pants. I used it during a hiking trip in 2018, and it still looks as good as new. If you're interested, click the link below to place your order. To improve visibility for the pilot, the A-10's fuselage is not rounded like traditional aircraft, particularly at the nose. The cockpit is positioned high, with nearly vertical sides and a distinct downward slope to minimize blind spots. The two engines, positioned behind the fuselage, are the most prominent design feature, helping to reduce the risk of ground fire and supporting takeoff and landing on makeshift airstrips. The A-10 is equipped with two General Electric TF-34-100A turbofan engines, each providing 40.32 kilonewtons of thrust, with a thrust-to-weight ratio of 0.36. These engines offer high fuel efficiency, allowing a combat radius of 500 kilometers without external fuel tanks, or a maximum range of 3,900 kilometers with 3 external fuel tanks. The aircraft also has in-flight refueling capability, with a refueling probe located just in front of the cockpit. As a frontline support aircraft, the A-10 certainly faces ground fire, so survivability is a top priority. To protect the pilot, the cockpit is armored with a titanium bathtub-shaped shell, 38.1 millimeters thick at the bottom and front, areas most vulnerable to attack, and 12.7 millimeters thick on the sides and rear. The total weight of the cockpit armor is 544 kilograms, accounting for nearly half of the aircraft's total armor weight. This armor can withstand direct hits from 23 millimeter cannon fire and shrapnel from 57 millimeter artillery shells. Inside the armor, there is a layer of soft Kevlar to prevent injury from debris. Fuel is concentrated in the middle of the fuselage and near the wing roots to reduce vulnerable areas, with fire-resistant materials and titanium armor used in critical parts, making the A-10 incredibly durable. As long as it doesn't take a direct hit from heavy artillery in a weak spot, it almost always returns safely. Although the A-10's defensive capabilities are excellent, its radar and electronics are quite weak, and it doesn't even have a fire control radar. A-10 pilots often joke that its cockpit, apart from the two LCD screens, is no different from the old F-84. The reason for this is that the nose of the aircraft was taken up by the massive GAU-8 30mm 7-barrel cannon, leaving no room for radar. Not only does it lack radar, but the early versions of the A-10 also did not have autopilot, and its navigation system was poor, often getting lost when flying at low altitudes, requiring pilots to manually navigate while referencing maps. It wasn't until after 1985 that the U.S. Air Force upgraded 283 A-10 with the ASN-141 inertial navigation system, which somewhat addressed the issue of navigation errors. The A-10's main weapon is the GAU-8, the heart and soul of the entire design. Everything on the A-10 is optimized to maximize the effectiveness of this cannon. To mount it, the aircraft not only sacrificed radar, but also had to adjust the front landing gear, shifting it to the right rather than having it centered on the fuselage because the GAU-8 was too large and produced too much recoil. If the cannon were centered, it would throw the aircraft off course or cause it to roll when firing. The GAU-8 is 5.9 meters long, with a 2.3 meter barrel and a cylindrical ammo drum, 0.9 meters in diameter and 2 meters long, holding 1,174 rounds and weighing 1.8 tons when fully loaded, equivalent to a small car. It occupies more than a third of the aircraft's length and 16% of its weight, a rare feature in combat aircraft design. The cannon is powered by two independent hydraulic motors, achieving a firing rate of 3,900 rounds per minute. And even if one motor fails, it can still fire 1,950 rounds per minute. The spent casings are not ejected outside, but are returned to the ammo compartment, reducing the risk of aircraft damage and stabilizing the center of gravity. The GAU-8 is highly accurate, with 80% of the rounds falling within a 12-meter circle at a range of 1.8 kilometers, combined with enough power to destroy tanks. According to U.S. tests, just a short burst of 348 rounds is enough to destroy a modern tank. The cannon uses two types of ammunition: PGU-14, armor-piercing incendiary, weighing 395 grams, with a muzzle velocity of 1,070 meters per second, capable of penetrating 76 millimeters of armor at 300 meters, 64 millimeters at 800 meters, 59 millimeters at 1,000 meters, and 55 millimeters at 1,800 meters, 1,200 meters, and PGU-13, high explosive incendiary. With modern tank armor typically only 40 millimeters thick, the GAU-8 easily penetrates. The armor-piercing and high-explosive rounds are loaded in a 5-to-1 ratio to optimize damage. Due to the 30mm rounds generating 20.3 kilojoules of kinetic energy and 40 kilonewtons of recoil, engineers adjusted the gun's angle downward by 2 degrees to counteract the tendency to pitch upward when firing. Besides the cannon, the A-10 has 11 weapon hardpoints, 8 under the wings and 3 under the fuselage. The outermost points on each wing can carry a maximum of 450 kilograms, typically Sidewinder missiles and an AN/ALQ-119 jammer pod. The inner points can carry 1,135 kilograms, such as Maverick missiles, and the 3 fuselage points can carry 2,270 kilograms, center, and 1,590 kilograms on each side. If all 3 fuselage points are used, only small munitions can be carried. For medium-sized munitions or external fuel tanks, only 1 or 2 points are used. A common configuration includes 4 Maverick missiles, 2 Rockeye bombs, 2 Sidewinder missiles, and 1 jammer pod, enough to destroy an entire armored battalion. Since its entry into service in 1976, the A-10 has participated in numerous conflicts, most notably the Gulf War in 1991. During Desert Storm, 148 A-10s flew 8,077 sorties, firing more than 780,000 rounds of 30mm ammunition and over 5,000 Maverick missiles, destroying more than 3,000 Iraqi military vehicles, including over 900 main battle tanks, accounting for more than 50% of the enemy's armored losses. The highlight was when 2 A-10s destroyed 23 Iraqi tanks in a single engagement, earning the nickname Tank Killer. Throughout the campaign, only 6 A-10s were shot down, and many of the others, despite sustaining heavy damage, returned to base, demonstrating their superior survivability. However, A-10 pilots primarily relied on visual identification to find targets, which could lead to mistakes in dusty conditions or when lacking good information. On one occasion, an A-10 mistook a U.S. Marine Corps LAV-25 armored vehicle for an Iraqi tank, damaging one vehicle and killing 8 people while injuring 1. After the Gulf War, despite upgrades, the A-10 was still not a fully modernized aircraft, and mistakes continued to occur. In 2003, in Iraq, an A-10 mistakenly attacked a U.S. Marine Corps AAV-7 in Nasiriyah, killing 18 people and seriously injuring 1. That same year, it mistakenly fired on a British convoy in Basra, killing 1 person and injuring 4. In 2006, during Operation Medusa in Afghanistan, an A-10 mistook a group of Canadian soldiers burning trash by a river for the enemy, causing casualties among 3 to 4 soldiers. After the Gulf War, the A-10 continued to see action in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, where it always shone due to the weak air defense of the opposition. However, when it encountered medium-level air defense like that of Yugoslavia in 1999, the A-10 played a secondary role, with one being shot down by an SAM-3 missile and achieving limited success. Against modern military powers, its survivability is a growing concern. In the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Ukraine repeatedly requested the U.S. provide A-10s, but the U.S. assessed that the aircraft would not survive under Russian air defense. The U.S. Air Force long ago realized the A-10 no longer met the needs of modern warfare and planned to retire it by 2015. However, the Army, which benefited greatly from the A-10, was determined to keep it, even offering to take it back if the Air Force didn't want it. Ultimately, the U.S. Congress rejected the Air Force's request to retire the A-10. If you've read this far, you're surely a true military fan. I hope to receive your support with a like and follow. Military videos tend to have a limited audience, so I hope you continue to accompany me.